Next item on the agenda is items for board discussion. Mrs. Aug.
Thank you, Mr. Birding. Members of the board, I have one item for board discussion tonight, and that is student fees for the 2021-2022 school year. The majority of fees will either remain the same or even be lowered for next school year. You'll find the fee schedules in your board packet. So I thought I would start with the pre-K to 5 schedule. The only change here is that we have added the preschool fees to the list. These are not new fees, they just have not been included in the fee schedule before. So we are adding them at the request of Mrs. Gilbert, our Director of Special Services. For grades 6 through 8, we have an increase in just one course, the 6th grade Advanced Language Arts. They made some changes to their summer reading novels, some of their paperback novels, and materials for class projects that resulted in that increase. And then I do want to note the addition of the $40 technology fee for grades 6, 7, and 8. It was not on the fee schedule last spring, but was added in the fall after we were able to get devices into the hands of the students in grades 6 through 8. So we came back to the board to add that later on. And so that's just really a new addition, even though students have paid that fee this year for the one-to-one. It's a one-to-one technology fee. And then for grades 9 through 12, we added 3 new elective courses at the high school, and those are highlighted in blue on your sheet. So those are just new course fees for music production, ceramics, and wheel throwing, and the math, modeling, and reasoning courses that we added. Another thing to note is that we were able to decrease fees for 3 of the courses at the high school, and those are highlighted in green on your sheet. And then finally, we also removed the student agenda fee for grades 9 through 12, so that's a savings across the board for all students because we moved the agenda online since every student now has a device.
Great.
So this concludes my item for board discussion. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for Mrs. Aug? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item will be covered by Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Birding. My item is the extracurricular review recommendations for 21-22. According to our collective bargaining agreement, every April we get together a committee. It's made up of half teachers and half administrators, and we encourage anyone in the district who would like to see additional extracurriculars for our students to submit them for consideration, or if they are recommending changes in a current extracurricular, they can submit those as well. So this year we had 12 submissions, and we're presenting 10 of those to you tonight for consideration. I'm going to present them, we can discuss them, and then they'll be voted on at the next board meeting. The first one is the elementary intramural soccer coach. This is someone who has a real zeal to see soccer start in the elementaries. We're starting off with it being in one building, Central. This is where the teacher works. And so we have that qualifying on Schedule 1. The second item is a new program called The Power of the Pen. And we have 2 sponsors at Crossroads who would like to start that program. The Power of the Pen is a competitive creative writing program, and it will last all year long. So it's always great to get students writing more. And so those 2 positions are being recommended. Item number 4 on your sheet, that if you're following along, is the House Tribal Coordinator. This is a new extracurricular for the senior high. All right, for the senior high. For those who may not have an understanding of what the House Coordinator is, they plan to divide the high school because it's such a large group into houses. And in each house there will be sophomores through seniors, so that the seniors can kind of tutor and help the sophomores as they come to the high school and help them get a good start. The different houses will have competitions with each other. They'll meet daily with special things happening as a part of their home rooms. And so we needed someone to coordinate this, come up with the contest, score the points, and all of those. So it's a house tribal coordinator, a brand new position for the high school. The next item is pop orchestra co-director. We've had one director in the past, but because they're teaching a variety of instruments and because there are so many students involved, they decided they needed a second person to help with the Pops Orchestra. Item number 7 on your sheet is Fairfield for Change Advisor. We've been very proud of our high school students who on their own started a group called Fairfield for Change. And they haven't had an official advisor this year. So now it's been recommended that they have an official advisor to help them and get their activities organized and things, although they've been doing a great job on their own, but everybody needs an advisor. So that's item 7. Item 8, we currently have a peer tutoring coordinator. And in the past, this has been students at the high school who have tutored other students at the high school at the end of the day. But the program's really advancing. Now they're able to help students via Zoom, not just at the high school, and they're even reaching down as low as the middle school groups to give them tutoring as well. So this was at a Schedule 1. Because of the additional duties, we would like to move that to a Schedule 3. The next item is the track middle school head coach for grades 7 and 8. We discovered that the head coach was making the exact same amount of money as the other assistant coaches, and so we're moving them from a Schedule 3 to a Schedule 4. It's more indicative of the duties that they actually perform. The next item, African Student Union Advisor. That's currently happening, but once again, they're doing a lot more than they used to do, and so we're recommending moving them from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 2. The next item is, it used to be the athletic director for the freshman school, but because freshmen are involved in varsity and reserve games here, there really wasn't much of a need for this position, and they were fulfilling other duties. And so we're changing the name to be consistent with that. Will now be called the Athletic Facilities Coordinator. It's the same position, same amount of money. The name will change and the job description will change. They'll work with athletics in grades 9 through 12. They will confirm competitions and make sure facilities are available and ready for them. So that's a change that costs us no additional money. And then the final recommendation is for the varsity head girls volleyball coach. Because that program now is almost a year-round program with their conditioning and everything that they do. They're moving from a Schedule 7 to a Schedule 8. Those are the recommendations from the committee. Do you have questions or thoughts concerning any of those?
Any questions?
Please, go ahead, Mrs. Short.
I just had a question. I was speaking with one of our students that competed in the AXO program. The question came up about what would a student need to do if they were interested in, it would be under the African Student Union, and actually bringing in someone to kind of help coordinate with African dance. What would the student need to do if they were wanting to extend the club into getting a little bit more support and tutelage, I guess, in African dance? Since they compete, they do well in it, but it would be nice if they actually did have, an authentic teacher. What would they need to do?
Okay, that's a great question, and that's what this process really is all about. They would need to go talk first to their grade level assistant principal,
Okay.
and run the idea by them, and that person can then coordinate with the high school principal, talk about it, see what the need is, and then they put it through this process. There are some forms they have to fill out. It would be their advisor that would fill out the forms
Yep.
that they would like to expand, maybe have someone just doing the dance portion, but it's through this process. But they can start by having the conversation with their advisor and the assistant principal.
Awesome. So they can do that now that they're going to have an official advisor.
Yes, they can suggest that now. The paperwork, unfortunately, this happens one time a year in April.
Right.
So it may not be in place for next year.
Yep.
However, a lot of times, if someone wants to be that advisor, they will work voluntarily for 1 year, and then when it's approved next year, their salary would move to this with 1 year of experience, so they'll get paid more the second year, even though they would just be volunteering the first year. So we could get someone in there to do it this year if they have, if there's someone that's interested in being that advisor for them.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quigley?
Yeah, I was going to say, these all look wonderful, but I'm especially excited for number 8, the peer tutoring coordinator, and what they might be doing. You mentioned not only tutoring peers at the high school, but maybe even down into the middle schools?
That's correct, yes.
That would be
Corey
great.
Simmons here at the high school, one of our outstanding English teachers, fulfills this. He's the peer tutoring coordinator, and they have this year greatly expanded. Like I said, they usually, a group of students come and they do in-person peer tutoring, but for the first time, they've opened that up to Zoom tutoring.
Yeah.
And that's really been helpful this year, and now some of the younger students are reaching out, so they're expanding it.
Well, that's great. I think it's something that can be used in any year, but certainly in this year, in
Right.
a virtual environment. That's wonderful.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Mrs. Gundram, any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin.
You're welcome.
You have this next several items, so you just feel free to
Okay.
jump right in.
All right. The next item is the 2021-2022 Ohio, OHSAA Board of Education Resolution. And so that's coming up. It's the Ohio High School Athletic Association. And every year, we have to do a new resolution for them, and it's just a formality. We're actually agreeing that our 7th through 12th grade athletics will work under their rules and regulations, and that we voluntarily join this group to become members. And so this is a formality. There'll be a resolution on the next board agenda. We'll have it in your packets and have it on the agenda for approval at the next meeting. We do this every year, so it's just a formality for us tonight.
Great.
Any questions about that?
Questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. The next item are some new board policies that we, or some revised board policies, I should say, that we've been working on. There are 5 of them tonight. All of these are using the suggestions of our policy group, the Ohio School Boards Association. All of these have been discussed with the appropriate staff members, and also our legal counsel, John Clemens, has looked over these and given input on these as well. The 5 policies, the first one is BFCA. It's the Business Advisory Committee to the board. This policy is being revised to give school districts and our own greater flexibility in having a business advisory committee. We're adding language that allows us to partner with our local educational service center or joint vocational school district because they can sometimes have meatier or bigger advisory boards than you can muster in a single district. Matter of fact, Mandy Ogg, who is she's very
Lost
electric,
her.
sitting here next to me. She's been checking into that to work with the Butler County ESC and Butler Tech to provide that business advisory. We're also adding required language for if we stay the way we are, we have to file a joint statement each year. So that's BFCA. Any questions about that policy or the changes?
Mr. Martin, might I put you on hold for just 1 second?
Yes.
Since we lost Mrs. Gundram, in case she
Okay.
has any questions.
Perfect.
I think we're working on getting that recovered.
All right.
Tell you what, why don't you go ahead and cover the policies, because I know she's got this pre-worked anyway, and then
Yes.
we'll come back and ask her if she's got any questions.
I did have a question on that one, but I can do it afterwards.
Okay, well, you can ask it now if you'd like.
Okay. When I read of the policy, I thought that it did present a good opportunity to take advantage of the more extensive business connections that, Butler Tech would have. My question is, for Fairfield businesses, for local businesses, since we're not going to have, quote-unquote, our own advisory, does this in any way limit, like, those small Fairfield businesses that may not have connections with Butler Tech, but would want to have input into Fairfield City Schools? How can they still participate or be involved? And does the outreach possibly extend to those outside of Butler Tech's agreements and relationships? I mean, can that be extended to Fairfield businesses? I don't want to leave them out in case there are
Right.
other...
I certainly understand what you're saying. Mrs. Aug is just now in the process of finding out more about how Butler Tech operates their Business Advisory Council. I am sure that the way most of these operate, they're always willing to have new businesses join. So if there are any of our current businesses in Fairfield that would like to join that, I can't speak for them without having checked, but they may be willing to have them join that as well. And in addition, we work closely with so many businesses in our community, so we'll still be asking them about things, inviting them to participate. I'm not sure that we would have an additional separate one, but we would certainly encourage them to try to be involved with the larger one and still keep them in touch with what we're doing as a school district. I don't know if you have anything to add
Yeah.
with that?
So I'll just add that, we do have Mr. Radel from the Chamber who sits on our board, and he also sits on the committee for Butler Tech. So he is really our liaison in many ways to businesses in Fairfield, because the members of the actual Business Advisory Committee really are very few. So we really rely on Mr. Radel to kind of, keep us informed of what businesses are going through and challenges, struggles, success, those types of things. And we are allowed to take our own Business Advisory Committee members to Butler Tech. So I just have to tell them, how many people are interested. So we had our Business Advisory Committee meeting this week, and our current members, who are our dedicated members, who are there every time we meet, and that's a small number of people, it's really only 3, are all interested in migrating over to the Butler Tech committee.
Okay,
So,
gotcha. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Aug. That was very helpful. And any other questions about that policy?
Mrs. Gundram, are you back with us?
Almost.
Mrs. Gundram, can you hear us? Mrs. Gundram, can you hear us?
Are you all able to hear me?
We can
We
hear
can hear
you.
you.
Okay, I can't hear anything there.
Can you hear us now? about now? Can you hear us now? Maybe I could call Mrs. Gundram from my cell phone, and then she could try to hear us that way. And if she has any questions,
Oh,
okay?
I got it.
You have it? Okay.
Jerry. Okay, I want to put you on speaker so you can hear us and we can hear you. We can hear you fine through the computer. Okay. Okay, so can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, and then when she wants to speak, she could she can unmute herself so that we can hear her.
Okay, I can hear Michael too. Thank
Okay.
you, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay, so if you even want to put your phone on speaker, and then when you want to have any questions or whatever, and when you vote, you could you can unmute your feed, and we can hear you fine. Okay? All right, so the last thing we did, we just covered board policy letter A now, and we're going to move on to B. So that's the only thing you missed, was that we were talking about A. Okay? All right, Mr. Martin?
All right, thank you. The second board policy tonight is letter EBC. It's the Emergency Management and Safety Plans. And that is a change in the title. It used to be called just Emergency Safety Plans, so we've added a couple words there. House Bill 123 has changed the coding for this requirement. It's now found in Revised Code 5502.262. There have been two items that have been added as requirements for this management and safety plan. The two items are a threat assessment plan and a protocol for threat assessment teams. The big change here and why it was changed in the revised code is that it's changed who the requirements are transferred to. They've been transferred from the Ohio Department of Education, used to own this. Now it's the Director of Public Safety. And so language has been added that we will keep our plan current and that we will make sure it's accurate by July 1st of each year. Matt Crapo, who is our Director of Student Services, is in charge of this plan for our district. Any questions about EBC?
Any questions? Any questions, Mrs. Gundram? Okay.
The third policy is policy GCD. It's professional staff hiring. This policy is being revised as a result of House Bill 442. In the past, some of our employees, such as nurses, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, those people had to be licensed by their individual licensing group, plus they had to have a license with ODE. And ODE has changed that. Now they just have to have their license with their professional organization, and then they have to be registered with ODE. So it's not as much involved with them just registering with the Ohio Department of Education. So this policy, we just added the terminology about registering with ODE for some of our people. And the title has also been updated. Any questions about GCD?
What kind of professional staff positions are we talking about?
We're talking about nurses, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, those types of positions.
Okay.
For our teachers and basic educators, that will all stay the way that it is now. Okay? Thank you. The next policy is IGCG, and it has to do with our preschool program. The reason for the change right now is they've informed us that as prospective employers, any employees, we have to go through a screening. This is just for our preschool teachers. a screening for tuberculosis. If they meet 2 qualifying events, and the 2 qualifying events is if they've lived in the United States for less than 5 years, and if they moved here from a country where the World Health Organization says it's a heavy a place where there's a lot of tuberculosis. In that case, before we can hire them, they have to be screened for TB. But when we were adding that language, we found that this policy, which was one of our 1995 policies, had some other language to be updated, so we updated that language as well. Any questions about the preschool program?
I think.
Okay. And the final policy to discuss tonight is policy IGD. It's co-curricular and extracurricular activities. We just wanted to bring it up to date with OSBA's latest recommendations. The changes are mostly in the items. Item 16, before it just referred to students who are in grades 7 through 12 can participate in our extracurriculars. Now it's all students, so it's not limited. They can be involved earlier than that. And then there was also language in there that required people from outside of our school district, and we're talking about community schools or private schools or homeschooling. They used to have to take at least 1 course with us. Now that is waived. They don't have to be enrolled in our district. Then in items 16 through 20, we also added, because you have to determine that they are living within our school boundaries, that has been changed from the superintendent doing that to superintendent or designee to allow Mr. Smith to have some assistance and help. That's policy IGD. Any questions about that one?
Mrs. Gundry, do you have any questions about BCFA as well, the Business Advisory Committee?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Martin.
You're very welcome.
Next item on the agenda is items for board action. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Martin again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Following items for board action this evening, item number 1, recommend approval of board policy CBC/CBD concerning the superintendent's contract. Item number 2, recommend awarding the 2021 paving improvement project to Barry Brown Paving, 3210 Homeward Way in Fairfield, Ohio, 45014. Barry Brown was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, meeting specifications at an amount of $179,266.25, not to exceed $225,000. That concludes the items I have for your consideration, for your action this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve those recommendations.
So moved?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Begley and Mrs. Shorter. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll?
Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Yes.
Mr. Birdie?
Yes, motion passes.